The Fujifilm X-E2 is the purest camera I've used. It's nowhere near as beefy or spec'd out as my main work and video camera, the X-H1, but the X-E2's simplicity works in its favor for me. It's tiny, simple, and stylish, especially when coupled with a leather half case. There's no fancy features like image stabilization, and the screen doesn't even move, but what is there feels clicky and precise. There's no weather sealing to mush up the buttons. It's definitely not a workhorse of a camera, but the simplicity keeps things from getting too cluttered or complicated. The lightweight and compact design makes it really easy to just toss over the shoulder or in a bag for everyday shooting. And I feel like that's really important for something that's meant to capture moments. It shouldn't be something that feels like a pain to haul around. And when you're out there actually using it, the camera doesn't draw too much attention. It's small and under the radar. It's kind of funny, because for how much I like the retro and slick design, at first glance or from a distance, the camera almost looks like a little point and shoot, especially depending on what lens you have. So it's nice if you want to stay low-key and not have that effect where everyone immediately stares at you anytime you raise your camera, but people always argue that the looks and aesthetic and feel of a camera aren't as important as the specs and whatnot, and to a certain extent that is true, but for personal shooting, I just prefer to have something slick and cool rather than something big, chunky, and heavy like most DSLRs. And hey, this is definitely not a perfect camera. I already mentioned some of the missing features, but also the autofocus is not always the fastest, and there's a reason I never shoot any of my video on this. This is essentially what it looks like to me. When you boil it down, it's just a 16 megapixel APS-C sensor with average autofocus, an electronic viewfinder, and some fancy dials, all in a small package. It's more of a camera for the fun of photography, and they're pretty cheap too. The body is about $300 used, and if you really want to save money, you can just buy an old manual film lens and adapter and use that till you save up for an autofocus one. I mean, that's what I did for 2 years with this as my first digital camera. My intro to photography was all film cameras, and when I wanted to move to digital, I really didn't want to have to get a DSLR. I just hated how they looked like black Fisher-Price toys. It's silly, and I know I'll get some hate, but I just knew I wouldn't enjoy myself as much. But ever since getting this camera, it really has never let me down. The X-E2 is my go-to everyday camera that I bring with me on any personal shoot or traveling, and as I continue to use it, I'm always impressed with how much it can pull off for such a little and underrated camera. It honestly has taught me that for good photos, it's not always about the specs and features, and more just enjoying the photography.